Hello, I'm DerTebbers, and this is your indie game preview of Farming World. Farming is big business, and despite the simplicity in farming simulation games like Farming Simulator 2013, there is truly a lot of complexity involved when you are farming. So far, that complexity, and the concept of that complexity, has been the purview of the world of business simulations. This is Farming World, running as a pre-release build I got from the developer Excalibur Publishing. It is a farming business simulator, meshing the world of farming and the world of business together in one object. Now, if you recall, Excalibur also released Postmaster earlier this year, the post office business simulator, and in many ways, Farming World functions in much the same way, but already there are visible growth in Excalibur's offering. Now, this isn't an empty niche that Farming World wanders into. Unlike Postmaster and the slightly out there world of post office business simulation, there are already two offerings in the world of farming business simulation: UIG's Farming Giant and Rondo Media's Farming Manager. Does Farming World reign as the new king of farming business simulations? Well, there's only one way to find out. Graphics in a game like this are not that important. They are necessary, but in a genre where the slightly cartoon look of Transport Tycoon is perfectly accepted and in fact enjoyed, Farming World fits right in. There's only a couple problems that I've seen in the 20+ hours I've put into the game. And the first is in the log, which appears at the bottom of the screen. Often the messages are writing on top of the timestamp, making it difficult to read the beginning of the message. This is just a small cleanup, and again, I'm in a pre-release build, so it's likely that that will be fixed before this is released. The second issue is just a minor graphical glitch when you sell a building. It leaves a little bit of the building ghosted on the ground, but once you plow that area, it disappears. You can also just put another building down and it disappears. So really, that isn't such a big deal. Overall, Farming World looks much like Postmaster, and that isn't a bad thing. This makes it a very good business simulation to look at. Performance is excellent. I have yet to see a crash despite being a pre-release build of the game. The only slowness I experience is at the end of the month when your monthly results are calculated. And really, I'm not sure why the long pause during this calculation sequence. The monthly results are woefully inadequate for a business simulation, yet we have to pause every time we hit the end of the month. Kind of a bit strange. Other than that, the game has been smooth in turning the good, same, constant frame rate of Postmaster, about 30 FPS, which is perfectly functional for a business simulator. Gameplay is the most important part of a business simulator. That's where everything comes to bear. And I do have some issues with parts of Farming World. But overall, I think the issues I have, with a couple of exceptions, are a function of my pre-release build. Let's start with the tutorial. I believe the tutorial is very good. I'm not going to show you the tutorial because, well, I didn't feel like going through it again. But it's very good at covering the basics. It gives you enough information to get started, but it also sort of bombards you with information. It's sort of a sink or swim kind of attitude, which is fine. The game has a very low learning curve to it. Yet, even with the tutorial, I'd still like some sort of reference material to help in certain situations. Likely this will come via facts or forum posts or things like that, but I would still like to have seen a little bit more information to help me in certain areas. For instance, diseases appearing in my field after a bit of playing. How to handle this wasn't discussed in the tutorial, or if it was mentioned, it was so brief as to not display the icon for disease. This caused me to actually destroy several fields, thinking that the only way to end my problem was to destroy the field and start over again. It was only later I figured out that I needed to get higher quality pesticide, which is for pests, not plant diseases, but that's a different problem. And that appeared to control or at least mitigate my plant disease problem. But that was something I had to learn via trial and error. The lack of an ability to context scroll is actually extremely annoying. There's a lot of windows where you're going to have to move up and down within the pop-out window. If I'm in a menu with multiple options, I want my scroll wheel to scroll the menu, not zoom the map in the background. Additionally, the lack of the ability to rotate the map is an extreme hindrance, especially once you've built up an area and are trying to add a road. If we can't rotate, at least let us set the buildings and trees to a see-through mode so we can place things properly. It would also be wonderful to be able to rotate a building. Often with my mindset, having played a lot of SimCity and Cities XL, I want to fit buildings in a particular way, but I can't because the buildings cannot rotate. And that sort of detracts from me being able to build what I believe to be my perfect looking farm. Additionally, an option for larger fields would be great. You're limited to a 200 square field. What those squares really are, you never really learn. But that 200 square field, if we assume it's acres, which I don't think it is based on the size of the vehicles, is still a bit small. In 2008, the United States Department of Agriculture said that the average size of a farm in the United States, a farm field in the United States, was approaching over 400 acres. So, can I have a bigger field, please? At least for maybe the US map. Handling some of the more complex functionalities took a little bit of trial and error to understand. For instance, it took me a while to understand how much wheat it took to produce flour, to produce bread, and back calculate that to know the base amount of wheat I needed in order to make 1 ton of bread. If you don't feel like doing the back calculation, good luck, because that's not shown anywhere. And that is kind of a problem. Additionally, why can't I fertilize my trees? Why do I have to plow them up after a couple of seasons in order to fertilize? I grew up near an apple orchard, and they would never have done that. They only destroyed the apple trees every 5 to 6 years. And even then, they didn't really destroy an entire chunk of the orchard. Another issue was with the animals and feeding them. Water can be automated to buy when it drops below 50% on the fields. Why not animal feed? Why must I manually feed them? This might not seem like a big deal until you realize you play this game on 100 times speed almost exclusively. To play any slower really slows down the ability of the game play to move along. I can't tell you how many times I starved my animals because I'm trying to deal with my fields and my animals are off screen. I have no way of knowing that they're becoming critical in terms of food until I get the message that my animals are starving. So let me auto-feed my animals, please. This game does a good job of seasons, weather, and other events to try to keep you on your toes, but I would like to see the weather on the screen without having to go and check with the weather lady to see if it's raining. That's a bit of a pain, and it also sort of makes it to the point where I don't ever go and look. I end up not caring about the weather. The game does say it can affect your crops, and I see it affect my crops. But because it's hidden in a menu, and I can't visually see it, I end up not caring. Planting has to be planned to make sure that your plants will create the best yield. This is a fantastic mechanic, and I like it greatly. Not only do you have to make sure your field is prepped, you have to make sure that you have enough fertilizer left on the field for their growth cycle. You have to make sure that you're not going to go into the wrong season. I can't tell you how many times I've planted pumpkins in August, forgetting that the growth cycle would take them into winter and it would just absolutely decimate my pumpkin crop. I forgot. So it's a fantastic mechanic, and it really adds to the game and makes the game extraordinarily good. The map, however, is very flat. In fact, it doesn't change at all. Location only seems to vary the weather. Now, I didn't mention location in the US. There's actually multiple locations to put your farm on. Australia, the United States, Italy, Germany, UK, Spain, Scandinavia. But the map never changes, your starting position never changes, and the location of your AI never changes. So all it does is change the weather and the seasons. It would be nice to have seen some change within the map itself to say, hey, you're now in Scandinavia, you're no longer in Spain. It would be interesting to see Excalibur additionally add in mod support, allowing modders to create custom maps, new regions, new crops. That would really allow this game to grow even farther. Some vestiges of Postmaster do show up here in Farming World, and they do, in my opinion, cause an issue. As a business simulation, I want graphs. I want a lot of graphs and charts and statistics. I want to be able to pull up historical graphs, trend lines for multiple things. I want to analyze them. You might think it's unnecessary, but for serious business simulation players, it becomes vital. I complained about the lack of graphs and charts in Postmaster, and the charts here are the same. They lack anything. In fact, I don't even bother looking at them because, to me, they're useless. I can look on the screen and see the same data. A perfect example is the lack of a pricing history. I don't know how much a product will sell for until I have produced it and I'm ready to sell it. Why? Why can't I see historical trends in pricing so I can plant accordingly? Why am I forced to hope that I can sell my carrots for a decent price instead of giving me that information on carrot pricing before I plant so I can make a informed decision about which I plant? I might not plant carrots and I might choose instead to plant cabbage because the trend line of pricing tells me that. But I don't have that option. I'm making guesses in the game. With contracts, I have found some bugs. I've found that in many cases, I can't always sell things that seem to meet the contract. I had chestnuts, for instance. I was supposed to provide 10 tons of chestnuts to somebody. I had 20 or 30 tons of chestnuts, but the game wouldn't tell me I could complete the contract. Best I could figure is that mine were organic and they wanted non-organic. That doesn't make any sense. If I want to sell you organic chestnuts and you treat them as non-organic, then please go do so. Additionally, completing contracts doesn't actually complete the achievement for completing contracts. They don't actually show an increase in your achievement rate. I completed 3 contracts, but I never got the achievement for completing 3 contracts, and it doesn't even show that I've completed the contracts in the percentage complete section. Speaking of achievements, there's a few achievements. I don't even know how they work. Produce 100 plants. What do you mean produce 100 plants? I'm producing thousands of plants. Every season, I'm producing thousands of plants. Do you mean own 100 of the plants? Well, there's not even 100 plants to own, so that can't be it. That might be because this is a pre-release, but something is missing. Something is not working here, and I don't know what it is. Now, in addition to just not being able to complete the contract, I never know why. If I knew why, if I could hover over an icon or something so I knew why what I had in my warehouse didn't meet the contract, that would be a huge help. When I'm choosing plants, there's a red exclamation mark next to some areas. Why? I don't know. It's never discussed. These are small things that really need to be fine-tuned a little bit to make the game feel better. There is an AI on the map, but just what the AI is for and what impact they have is completely unknown. In my game, the AI really loves sunflowers, and he just grows a couple fields of that over and over and over again. Now, I realize that in hard mode, their expansion might hinder me, but given the size of the map, I question when that would ever happen. I have trouble beyond just my screen itself handling all of the fields because, again, the fields are not that big, in my opinion, and I can't zoom out far enough to see the entire map, so it does become a struggle. I don't see my farm expanding beyond, say, 24 fields. And if I have animals, probably not even that. I think Farming World is a neat game. I do love a good business simulation. However, I find myself struggling without access to the right information and the right graphs. And I would almost classify this as a light business simulation. And that might be good. That might be exactly what you're looking for, because a hardcore business simulator is rather tough. You think of something like Capitalism 2, which is probably one of the tougher business simulations out there. It became very tough because the business simulation was really structured above the gameplay. So it might be good that this is a light business simulation. I do like that a lot of the issues I had with time management that were in Postmaster have been corrected. And when compared to Farming Giant, which is an unstable mess as per usual for any UIG game, I think Farming World is worlds better. Now, without having truly played Farming Giant or Farming Manager, I can't say for sure Farming World is the new king of the business simulation. For that, you need to wait on Fadman and Stock of Glaws to weigh in since they played those competitive products. Still, this is a good entry to the market and a solid second game from Excalibur. They've already shown growth over the first game, so it gives us hope that the small little problems that are appearing here in Farming World can be corrected before they fully release. Again, remember, anything that I've said here is based on this pre-release copy I have, and they could have easily patched this before releasing the game. If these issues are still there, then it does kind of color the game and lessen its playability in my opinion. But let's hope that they take to heart the little problems and the little bugs that we've discovered in the game and maybe give us some more graphs and the ability to rotate the map. That would be a great start right there. I've been DerTebbers, and this was an indie game preview of Farming World from Excalibur Publishing. If you're into farming and business simulations, this one is worth you taking a look at. Until next time, happy farming.